This video depicts a complex insurgent attack that occurred on 13 November 2010 at FOB Fenty, Jalalabad, Afghanistan. FOB Fenty is located 90 miles east of Bagram Airfield and 20 kilometers west of the Pakistani border in the RC East battle space, and was being defended by 9 U.S. Air Force Security Forces defenders and 3 U.S. Army military police soldiers assigned to the 1st Brigade Combat Team, 101st Airborne Division. The Air Force Security Defenders and U.S. Army military police performed law and order operations for Task Force Bastion and also served as the Installation Response Force, IRF, for Task Force Bastion's headquarters. These units were located at FOB Fenty and were under the direction of the 426th Brigade Support Battalion Base Defense Operations Center, or BDOC. Starting in July 2010 and leading up to the 13 November complex attack, there was significant intelligence buildup indicating insurgent interest in FOB Fenty. Several days before the attack, sticky bomb detonations occurred at Entry Control Point, ECP. In addition, insurgent mistakes during rehearsals led to 5 subjects being captured while possessing illegal items such as IED switches and 17 Army combat uniforms. Biometrics fingerprinting through the batch system identified one of the suspects as having a warrant out for his arrest. On the morning of 13 November, intelligence indicated that approximately 20 Afghan insurgent fighters were approaching FOB Fenty. The complex attack started at 0445 when the first shot was fired at Observation Post 1.5. This triggered the BDOC to immediately notify the IRF, which consisted of 3 Security Force Defender fire teams, each having an M4 and M9. At 0446, BDOC viewed AIF movement with remote cameras on the west perimeter that picked up individuals crawling towards the FOB. A minute later, BDOC dispatched the Quick Reaction Force, QRF, to the Entry Control Point and the IRF to the west perimeter. The IRF team leader, Viking 6, along with his fire team, arrived at OP 1.5 at 0500. Viking 6 positioned his 2 other fire teams on the west flank where previous insurgents had successfully breached the FOB perimeter. He then directed the use of night observation devices to positively identify and eliminate insurgent forces attempting to breach the perimeter. 17 minutes after the initial shots were fired, FOB Fenty went into condition Delta and the Security Force defenders began to execute their battle plan, which had been repeatedly rehearsed in the previous 60 days. These rehearsed battle drills directly contributed to the success and execution of protecting and defending the base. The IRF was on station at OP 1.5 for approximately 5 to 10 minutes when the Afghan insurgent forces initiated the main attack by engaging with automatic weapons, providing covering fire. The initial fire was sporadic, and insurgents made good use of the pitch-black conditions to mask their movement and hinder the defenders' ability to positively identify them. The IRF's fighting position at OP 1.5 was on a raised platform on the perimeter wall approximately 6 to 8 feet off the ground, which gave them good cover but little concealment. At approximately 0510, an RPG hit the wall of their fighting platform. The ensuing firefight on the west perimeter would last 1 hour and 45 minutes. Moving under the covering RPG fire, approximately 3 small groups of AIF started bounding forward towards OP 1.5. All AIF were dressed in Afghanistan National Army ANA uniforms, except one fighter who was dressed in a traditional Afghanistan full-length garment. He was quickly identified using night observation devices, engaged, and neutralized approximately 150 meters from the perimeter. Using cover and concealment, the insurgent force unit had maneuvered now to within 100 meters of the FOB perimeter. Intermittent radio communications prevented reliable radio contact with BDOC and proved ineffective throughout the engagement. Viking 6 used his cell phone as a last resort measure.
BDOC, this is Viking 6. AIF is within 200 meters, directly at the 12 o'clock from OP 1.5. We are taking automatic gunfire. I estimate 15 to 20 individuals. Need QRF for support.
A failure of tactical communications initially left the security forces defenders without QRF support. Viking 6 received word from BDOC that ANA were going to sweep from the ECP across the west perimeter to assist in neutralizing the enemy fighters. Viking 6 asked BDOC how he would be able to identify friendly ANA forces and was told they would be wearing glow sticks. It is important to note that there were no prior standard operating procedures nor training conducted between ANA units and security force defenders. Over the cell phone, Viking 6 was instructed by BDOC to utilize the PAC force to raise the target area for air support. When they did, the gunship did not fire.
BDOC, Viking 6, can you confirm with air support they see our markings? BDOC, Viking 6, we just took a dark position OP 1.5. Severe injuries, engagement is increasing. BDOC, Viking 6, where is the QRF? I need them ASAP. Give me their location and incoming direction. I prefer they sweep from the southwest access road.
At approximately 05:45, 1 hour into the fight, Viking 6 again observed movement near his position.
BDOC, this is Viking 6. I have 3 unidentified personnel coming from the west perimeter fence line, 75 meters from my 12 o'clock position.
BDOC requested Viking 6 confirm whether the 3 personnel were wearing ANA uniforms or had glow sticks.
BDOC, Viking 6. I believe the uniforms are ANA, however I can't see any glow sticks.
Not having positive identification, Viking 6 ordered his team to hold fire until he could determine their status. In hindsight, it was determined that these were insurgent fighters, but Viking 6 made the best decision he could based on the information he had. Not having been engaged, the 3 individuals continued to move toward the ravine to about 50 meters out and then disappeared into the marsh. As the firefight continued, Viking 6 directed Fire Team 2 to reposition their team and provide backup at OP 1.5. While engaging the insurgent force, a security team member saw a hand grenade appear from directly below his team's position and shouted a warning. The grenade had been thrown by one of 2 insurgents who had pre-positioned themselves directly below OP 1.5 prior to the start of the attack. The grenade fell on the second step below and behind their position on the platform, but the blast-over pressure still threw the team against the perimeter wall. Viking 6 quickly directed his team to get up and immediately re-engage the insurgent force. But by the time the defenders recovered, the insurgent group had moved up another 25 meters and were now within 75 meters of the west perimeter.
BDOC, Viking 6, we have AIF directly under our position. We took a grenade over our head. No injuries. What is the ETA of the QRF?
Finally, an Army Sergeant First Class from the Aviation Regiment arrived at OP 1.5 to establish communications with close air support assets. The security force defenders were now outnumbered and outgunned, and the insurgent forces were within 25 meters of the perimeter. The battle became up close and personal, with a heavy volume of small arms fire exchanged at very close quarters. Defenders were able to kill 4 AIF fighters until a second grenade was tossed onto their position, this time landing directly on the platform, with several fire team members within its kill radius. The defenders in Sergeant First Class dove for cover, but the Sergeant First Class and Viking 6 both sustained numerous fragmentation wounds as they were the closest to the grenade. Viking 6 got up to re-engage the enemy, but realized his weapon was disabled due to shrapnel. Viking 4 approached Viking 6, sat him down, and told him he was wounded and needed medical attention. The remaining members of the fire team, Viking 2, 9, and a U.S. Army MP, re-engaged the enemy. Not having been equipped with grenades, and having insurgent fighters directly below their fighting position, Viking 2 exposed himself to the insurgents, jumped on the perimeter wall, and fired approximately 10 rounds directly below his position to kill the insurgent fighter throwing grenades onto the platform. With the Army Sergeant First Class injured and unable to perform his duties, Viking 2 radioed VDOC, providing an exact position of the insurgent fighters and requested immediate initiation of close air support. VDOC authorized 4 close air support runs by Apache helicopters, starting as close as 10 meters from Viking 2's position. After completion of the Apache gun runs, an infantry unit QRF performed sector clearing operations around FOB Fenty. While conducting their sweep, the QRF took fire from an insurgent fighter still hiding in the marsh adjacent to OP 1.5, critically wounding one of their soldiers. A turret gunner from an adjacent QRF MATV unleashed his M2 50 caliber machine gun on the insurgent and killed him. The termination of the engagement coincided with the completion of the sector sweep by the QRF. After action reports confirm AIF size at approximately 20 fighters. There were 6 U.S. military members wounded in action. Defenders were credited with killing 9 AIF. Numerous unexpended rounds from the insurgents were recovered at the conclusion of the engagement, including 26 hand grenades, 20 PG-7s, 5 suicide vests, 4 AK-47s, 3 PKMs, and 3 RPG-7s. NCOs who possess first-class and innovative thinking leadership traits are irreplaceable. These types of leaders save lives in combat operations. Without their leadership, the mission fails. Routine pre-combat inspections are vital to mission success. The NCOIC must ensure that vehicles, weapons, and communication equipment are checked daily to ensure proper working order. Careful thought to contingency planning for primary and secondary communications are vital. Training is vital to building muscle memory during a close engagement firefight. The NCOIC must proactively train and conduct fan table discussions highlighting normal and worst-case scenarios. The entire unit must exercise battle drills so everyone on the team understands their assignments under all types of conditions. Reviewing battle drills and discussions with the team will identify equipment malfunctions, reduce individual error due to misunderstanding, and will develop and reinforce positive measures of effectiveness to improve the desired mission outcome. Repeat this 3-part sequence during your spare time in the combat zone. Combat stress and resiliency is critical for training. Close engagement firefights are inherently violent. Training to cement muscle memory and adapt the mind will prevent negative reactions such as tunnel vision. Sight in and know how to use your nighttime laser aiming device. Make yourself knowledgeable about the area you are defending and the critical resources on your base. After-action reviews are important. Coordinate with friendly forces and ensure battle plans are sound and practiced. Continue to improve operational effectiveness and increase integration of Air Force, joint, allied, and coalition capabilities in major combat operations.
Hello, AFSA, and welcome to the 2025 AFSA Professional Development Seminar. And I'm Todd Simmons, also retired Chief Master Sergeant Todd Simmons, which I will say to my military rank for former military rank for this purpose. And today, Columbia Southern University, in partnership with the Air Force Sergeant Association, is bringing to you today relevant conversations around mission command. You've probably already seen several leaders today if you signed up for those sessions. Some great leaders from General Breedlove, the former NATO Supreme Allied Commander, to CZ, the former SEAC, to Pat Austin, former SPATCOM, and a host of others. If you have not seen, you got an opportunity to see them before or after this session. But today, personally, I think we're bringing to you one of the most powerful sessions of today because I personally know this hero and I've served with him. And today, around this conversation, continued conversation around mission command, we wanted to make relevant conversations happen for this instance. So when we were going out looking at who we were going to bring in, the first name came to mind is Master Sergeant retired Dustin Goodwin. You'll get to know Master Sergeant retired Dustin Goodwin as you just did in his video, the unclassified video that showed the attack that he was a part of. That we'll get into the discussion. For that video, he was depicted as Viking 2, which you probably saw in the description. But Master Sergeant Goodwin has served in the United States Air Force. Won't go through his bio. We'll get into the conversation. I've known him for a long time. You will probably hear me refer to him as Goody a few times. That's what we affectionately call him by. But, I don't want to go any farther into this. I want to get him on screen. I want you to see this impactful conversation. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the support that you continue to have for the Air Force Sergeant Association. Thank you for the support of Columbia Southern University to continue to support our military men and women in uniform and our military families. It is an important endeavor that they take on. I'm proud to represent the university today. But without further ado, I want to bring Goody in to the conversation. Goody, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Todd. Thank you. Thanks for that introduction, man. Really something special to be here and for you guys to include me in this and to talk about Mission Command today and kind of my experience of what happened to me and how that affects Mission Command from a leader's perspective and also from, that frontline warrior's perspective on the ground. So I really appreciate you guys having me and I look forward to this conversation.
I appreciate you being here and taking the time. I know you. I learn something new about you every time we hang out, which we won't talk about today. But I definitely want to take a couple of minutes for everyone to get to know you a little bit. We see Air Force leaders all over social media, and that's good. We know our leaders' name on walls. But I think it's important for us to know the heroes behind some of these things that have happened over the last 22, 23 years. Of so many engagements, so many conflicts, so many things that we have done to further national security. So give us a couple of memories. Who's Master Sergeant retired Dustin Goodwin?
All right, Todd. So it's been a long road, right? I grew up in Northern California. I joined the Air Force kind of to get away from small mountain community, which I loved up there, but just kind of explore the world. And I came in guaranteed security forces. I seen that cool video that the Air Force recruiter was showing with like horses and a boat and stuff. And then, I got into the Air Force and it was a time that there were a lot of deployments. There was a lot of stuff going on. So like in the last probably decade, we've went through, ups and downs of deployments and not deployments. But when I joined, it was a lot. It was a 1-for-1 dwell. So we were going out the door, coming back in for the same amount of time we were gone and then doing it all over again. So in total, probably the first 8 years I was in, I spent 4 years deployed. And those were regular taskings. And then I did a few joint, the jet taskings, the joint expeditionary taskings with the Army and stuff. So it was an experience because you think about the Air Force, like just the military in general is the melting pot of the United States. And the Air Force is a melting pot of that. This deployment that I went through, that video you guys watched, it was a total experience for me. We were on a jet tasking like you've seen with the Army, and we were in combat. We were 3-hour-long firefight turned into close quarters combat. And it took its toll on me. And for me afterwards, and we'll probably talk about it later, but the rest and relief afterwards took its toll on me with, invisible wounds and PTSD. And then how I went through that and my ups and downs and where I'm at today, working back for the Air Force as a Department of Air Force civilian. My journey's been a long journey. And I recently just wrote a book. It should be published at the end of this summer. And it talks about a lot of the stuff that I went through as a person, as an individual, in my military career, my professional career, and my civilian career. So, yeah, it's not a one hat fit for everybody, but you just got to keep going and going. And that resiliency is really key.
No, I appreciate that, Goody. I mean, we'll definitely tap on a little bit of that. I think it's important to, people just saw a video of heroics of the team. And I know, everyone that deployed with you personally. And, but I think it's important, as we dive into this conversation, that we end probably with a lot of that resilience piece. So if that's okay with you toward the end, I think it's an important story that you have. So let's dive right into the heart of it, right? When you think of mission command, what does it mean to you personally as both the warrior and the leader? I know you're still training thousands of defenders today, making sure people are combat ready, and I know that's something that's on the forefront of your mind. So when you think about that mission command, what does it mean to you personally? As a warrior, as someone who's worn a uniform, been in combat, and now as a leader in the field of training men and women to go to combat.
So first, let's talk about as a leader. So we'll start from the top. And I'm going to say it's really important as a leader is understanding the intent, right? So your commander's intent, and mission command kind of emphasizes a clear understanding of the commander's intent. And if that commander's intent, you have you understand that intent even without being told, then that message is going to go through the ranks and stuff like that. So as a leader, you need to understand where it's coming from the top, but just kind of what that commander's intent means. And if you understand what it means and you filter that through your ranks properly, then you're going to understand that mission command as a leader, right? So as a warrior, I think it goes down to the boots on the ground, right? So that discipline initiative, right? So you have it as a commander up here going down to a warrior, and that discipline initiative is going to be understanding that intent, but also knowing what to do when your leader's not around. When there's nobody around, you still understand and you're still going the right path. So there's a lot that happens, like in our career field, you have so many people, and we might have the commander's intent, but by the time it flows down to the lowest ranking guy, there's people doing whatever they want to do. So as a warrior, boots on the ground, you need to have that discipline initiative to do what needs to be done, right? Because I think that's the most crucial aspect, is it empowers the subordinates to be able to carry out that commander's intent and what they have to do. So that's kind of how I think about it from the leader's perspective and then a warrior's perspective.
No, I appreciate that. And that sets up the scene, for what we, get into the meat of this conversation. If you were to take a moment and to take us back the day of the FOB Fenty attack, what were the first few moments like? And how did mission command principles guide your response in real time? I think what you just said, and that intent piece was so great. And I know people just saw the video, but I don't think it really, you can't really depict what really was there from, what's happening in the moments through the video, but so we have you here, you take us through those first few moments, how did those principles guide your response in real time?
Yeah. So first we'll go through with, those first few moments. I'm not gonna lie, I was scared. Everybody was scared. That adrenaline rush and the anxiety of not knowing what's going on. And the only way I can explain it sometimes is like, because I was deployed and some towers took some pop shots, or there was some indirect fire, or something not too crazy than like this incident. But the first few moments, that anxiety rush, it's really crazy. And I explain it like, if anybody's been in a car wreck or, a motorcycle wreck or something like that, and that tunnel vision, like everything seems like it slows down around you in life, but in real life, it's going super, super fast. And what happens is you get tunnel vision. And like in this instance, we were all up on that wall and we're firing this and that. And later on down the road in the after actions report, that's why we did it, to put it together, to see what really happened, because you're only locked into what you're doing and stuff. So the first few moments were, it was tunnel vision, and I only saw what was in my lane. So mission command, the way that it helped me in that instance was trust and empowerment, right? So it was more about the individuals and us trusting ourselves in our training. And that's what got us through it, because we went to the RTC, but not only did we do that, when we went downrange, we were on a jet tasking. So we were working with the Army, we were the Air Force. So we went down there, and then we set up all of our gear the same. We went over our battle drills and rehearsals. So we did everything before it happened, and then kind of internalized that. And we knew stuff would have happened at Jalalabad, but not that. And then it happened, and it was like, boom. And, I'm not going to lie, like, it was pretty nerve wracking. But I think in a situation like that, if you weren't a little bit scared or didn't have anxiety or something like that, then there's something wrong, because I mean, that's obviously going to help you do what you got to do. Hopefully by staying calm and not freaking out.
Yeah, and you talk about that trust piece. I heard you lay out trust 2 times there, man. I mean, I know what the story we've talked about. We were in the same squadron when you guys came back and had conversations about this. About you just didn't. And you mentioned 2 things: trust, and you said I just didn't rely on my RTC training. So I know the little bit of things that you talked about. Trust. The next part about trusting your team leaders made all the difference. And I know trusting your team leaders made all the difference from conversations we had. If you can go into a little bit about that, about how close that team came together before something happened, and how did you every day go through battle drills and all those things that you did, because the Air Force, the Department of the Air Force, is re-emphasis, and I know you're a part of it now, on mission readiness and just a readiness mindset. How did you capture that mind? How did your team trust each other enough to capture that readiness mindset, even though you didn't know what was going to happen the next day?
So going back to what I was talking about, we all we had trust in each other because we all trained together before. We rehearsed together. We went through it in our mind. We talked about it a lot. Even when nothing was going on, we were still doing, our PCCs, our PCIs, our pre-combat checks, inspections, and stuff. And it allowed us as lower ranking guys, when people weren't around, to do what we had to do. So I know when we were on the wall, and then at that time, Captain Weiss, now Colonel Weiss, when he got injured with one of the grenades, I was the ranking guy on the wall. And because I had trust in my guys and what we did together, it really helped, because it didn't matter if we were at the gym together. It didn't matter, if we're eating together. We did a lot of stuff together, and it built that camaraderie. So here's what I think. A lot of people talk about the mission, right? We're there for the mission. We're there for that. And it really boils down to, and you hear people talk about, and it's really true, is it boils down to the guy or girl to the left or the right of you, because those are the ones that are going to build trust in, and you're going to have camaraderie with. And those are the ones that are going to make you do, I guess, extraordinary things that, when something like this happens. And we built that trust through training, but we solidified that trust through each other. So that was, it was something special. Team Vikings will always have a special place in my heart.
No, I appreciate that. Like I said, I just know the relationship, that trust. And when you build that trust in the team, that's everything. It builds a culture, it builds a repetition of not waiting for something to happen. You have each other's back. So thank you for that. So let's talk about, risk and discipline, right? Balancing risk. You said at some point you weren't in charge, and at some point, unexpectedly, you were in charge, right? And Mission Command, it always talks about accepting risk, right? How did you balance risk and discipline while making decisions in a rapidly and evolving combat situation? You had, if I remember from the video, you had an Army senior NCO, and you had a captain, a CGO, and now you, at the time, as a tech sergeant at E6 in the Air Force, now you find yourself in this situation of balancing risk and discipline. So how did you balance those 2 things in that evolving rapid situation that was happening?
Well, so we always talk about like operational risk management stuff, right? So in a firefight, like, that's inherently dangerous and risky, right? So that operational risk management that we normally talk about it's not going to kind of be out the window, but it's gonna recognize that perfectly safe solutions are rarely possible, right? Especially for this one. And so what I know now, what I did then, but so to internalize it, it's I assess the risks associated with my actions and accepted the level of risk that was justified by the potential gain. So I knew by putting myself out there and laying down fire, in return, the base would be safe, and I was protecting the mission, right? I knew that my friends to the left and to the right of me might not get hit, or they might, so I accepted that risk at that time to do what I had to do. But at the time I didn't know that, you know what I mean? But now I do, that I accepted that risk to do what I had to do for the outcome and stuff. So, and a lot of it boiled down to after that second grenade came over and it landed on the wall and it blew all of us, into the wall and stuff. And then people were hurt and stuff. Yeah, I'm like, whoa, what? One of us is gonna die, or all of us is gonna die. So they're gonna die too. So I accepted the risk of me possibly getting shot up and to take them out.
No, I appreciate that, man. And like I said, that video, I think that's what a great depiction of a tool that can, describe, and having you along with the video today, it's described for so many, hopefully hundreds or thousands of NCOs who watch that, because I think it's a timeless message to anyone, what you can, what's today, just like most of us who served 9/11, September 10th was a day, and then the 11th changed our whole life. So it's the same thing. And I tell people every day is a day that can change your life. And we know that. So let's talk about, pull that string a little bit. I want you to, this video will live forever. And I know you're training NCOs and airmen, particularly security forces, but this will go to guardians, and this is going to go to airmen, and potentially other services as it gets on YouTube, or people will see this. And I want, I want to put people into context. You were a young tech sergeant, E6, at the time of this attack, and I want you to look back real quick and just take one or two attributes and habits that you think prepared you for that kind of leadership under fire. And if you had to directly talk to young NCOs today, what would you tell them were those skill sets that are timeless, that how can they build those same attributes, to be that leader that when we need them to step up in that any second that's unknown?
So I know one thing that did help me, and the Air Force does a great job about sending you to this place before you go, is RTCs, right? So the regional training centers for like pre-deployment stuff. So just repetitions and stuff. And we like to say nowadays reps and intensity, So reps and intensity at a regional training center, that really helps. But getting to know your guys and your gear also help. But the biggest thing, a lot we talk about the physical attributes of combat, right? So you want to be physically prepared, you want to be physically tough, you want to be physically this. But nowadays, I like to talk about the psychological aspects of combat, because I didn't know then, right? We go through the RTCs and we do all these reps and stuff to help out our psychological aspects, because your sympathetic nervous system, you see something, stranger danger, whatever in your body, and voluntarily acts right to what's going on. And through your sympathetic nervous system, you're going to fight, flight, or freeze, right? So we do this training and repetitions, and not a lot of, I don't want to say all the young airmen or who's ever training don't like doing it, but they don't understand that reps mean you're basically training your sympathetic nervous system to fight when you're flighting, or what I mean, to properly do what it's supposed to do during that time. So I think that the whole person concept kind of not just thinking about the physical attributes, but also the psychological attributes is what's going to take you to that next level. So, and that's what I like to talk about nowadays when I'm in there in any of the courses, and talking about is the sympathetic nervous system, the fight, flight, or freeze, and the psychological aspects of combat versus the physical aspects of combat. Don't get me wrong, you still need the physical aspects of combat, right? But those psychological ones are going to keep you in the fight when you're scared, or you're cold, wet, tired, and hungry, and you want to quit.
No, I appreciate that. And I want to shift gears exactly along the lines of what you're talking about. And it's the resilience piece. You talked about that psychological preparation, right? And resilience after combat. And this is I wanted to touch on this subject when we were talking, and the same thing when I had, another one of our friends on, talking about this, because we barely ever talk about what's the after effect. We freeze in a moment in time sometimes, and for rightfully so, and recognize the people for all the achievements that they've done. But then the story kind of puts a period there. It's not a comma or a semicolon. It's just a dot and the story's over. But for those of us who know people like you, Goody, we know that that story continues and continues and continues, right? And for the rest of your life, and it spreads and spiders out, because it's not just you, it's your family, it's your friends, it's your life. So I want to talk about after an event like that, right? We talk about resilience and the essential part of resilience. What did that path regaining your personal and professional resilience look like? What helped you most, and what surprised you? And, what would you like to talk about in that aspect?
So first, right off the bat, like initially, after an incident like this, you do a informal AAR, after actions report, and you see what's going on. And downrange, you're not really able to internalize everything of what happened and stuff until you come back. So we did our AARs. We found out stuff, the rights, wrongs, indifference, or how to go forward. And then we came back and we did a little bit of decompression in Germany. So we stopped there for a week or so, and we talked to people. And at the time, because that was my 5th combat deployment, and at the time I just wanted to stay physically fit to keep doing what I was doing. But little did I know, I was secretly being mentally unfit of what was going on. So we did some talking to therapists and stuff, came back, I was drinking here and there, doing whatever, and ended up having signs of PTSD. I came back. I got picked up for 12 Outstanding Airmen of the Year for the Air Force, which was a ride. My wife divorced me 2 weeks after I got blown up in Afghanistan. So it was a roller coaster of emotions. And then so I started going to mental health, seeking mental health, right? Because they want you to seek help. So I started seeking help, started taking some anxiety pills and this and that. And I was just masking my emotions, you know what I mean, with pills and drinking. I talk a little bit about it in my book, actually a lot about it in my book. And I was masking those feelings. Personally, professionally, it was a roller coaster of a ride, because I just got picking up for 12 Outstanding Airmen of the Year. I was up here. I was going around in the Air Force Enlisted Council with the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, going and talking and doing everything, and then going back to my squadron. And the only way I can explain PTSD, once I figured out what was going on, is I felt like I lost my wallet. I felt like I lost my wallet with everything in there. And I was trying to find my stuff. And at the same time, I was trying to be normal in my career and stuff. So it was hard for me to tell my leaders what was going on in my mind. So in 2014, I ended up seeking help, mental health, and I went to a treatment facility and stuff before I retired out of the Air Force. And it really helped me a lot, and it's like a fine line. It's like this gray area that people talk about with PTSD and stuff. Yes, you need to go get help, but that stigma out there, and people say, oh, I don't want to, lose my weapon. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I wish now that I would have gone sooner, so I could have got that help that I needed to make my career better, but I didn't. So, it was a long road, Todd, and I know you were there for me a lot, so I really appreciate you. But it's hard. It's hard. We're expected to do a lot of things in a short amount of time, and then internalize a lot of things that some people don't know about. I mean, how are you going to internalize shooting people 10 feet away? You know what I mean? And then go through this biggest thing, and then this lowest thing, and this and that. So it's and I guess that's resilience. Resiliency is making it through that without taking some other avenue out.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna tell you, I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm telling you, from your perspective, that will give. I hate to use the word permission, but I think it just reinforces to people that we all need, we all are subject to go and talk. I tell people I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life. In July 8th, 2025, I'm the happy, but I still seek help. And people are like, why do those two things make sense together? You still seek health and you're the happiest you are, because I want to continue that feeling. And I just want to personally say to everyone, I know the commas and the semicolons in between what Dustin and Goody just shared with you over just a couple of minutes. And I want to publicly say, I'm so proud of you. I know when we talk about resilience, that the things that you have done to show back up and be where you're at today, man, I love you for that. And it has given me strength, because I've received strength through knowing what you have had to do. So when I feel like that it's too heavy, I'm like, well, I have you to kind of latch on to and go, no, I need to go get myself up and I need to go get some help, right? Or I need to go talk to somebody. And that's through you. And I've never told you that publicly. I've never probably even told you that privately, but you've been personal strength to me. And I appreciate what you have done for so many. And I just hope that people can take your words that you just said and read between the lines and really understand that it is okay to really get yourself the help to get in a place to be happy, or to get into a productive place to really step back into the life that you want. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you. I appreciate you too, Todd.
So let's transition. Got a couple, as we end this fireside chat today, and I know that for the folks who are watching, and it might, and I'll put a plug for the folks who are going to be watching in 2032. This will still be relevant on YouTube or whatever it's called in 2032. But I want you to definitely think back on these words as we end this, and the words that as Goody has shared with us and the time he shared with us today. But I want to close this out with just a couple of thoughts from you, Goody. And you're beyond the uniform now, mission command beyond the uniform. And I know over the last decade that has probably looked different in the different aspects that you have had. You have stepped away from the military for a few years. You came back, and now you're in a different role even now in the military. So how has your view of mission command evolved now that you're out of uniform? Do you still see these principles at play in the civilian and your current role in this current future construct of conflict that we see? How important today, if you were talking to airmen and guardians, do you think that this is how locked in that they need to be on this?
For the military, mission command is super important, right? Because in uniform, there's a direct chain of command, right? Where people in positions are expected to make decisions, and out of uniform, it's a little bit different, right? Whereas in uniform, you have people, because of rank, those people are expected to make those decisions with the commander's intent and streamlining that commander's intent down. So it's a little bit different from the military to the civilian aspect. So for the military, I think mission command is super important. Going back to the first question that I think we talked about was understanding that commander's intent. Mission command emphasizes a clear understanding of that commander's intent. So it's important to have that leadership, but also to have that direct chain of command, right? So it goes through one or another. Now in civilian sector, it's a little bit different, because that mission command, I feel like it can come from other people. Even though you have a boss, you might have, people in charge. That mission command is more focused on everybody. So it goes back to kind of like that warrior on the ground and stuff. It can come from any which direction. So in the military, it's more direct. In civilian sector, it can come from a lot of different aspects and stuff. Sometimes I like to think that my mission command and my way of life and my future that really helped me now is my wife, my current wife. So she really set the standard for me to help me get back where I am at. And you did as well. In my book, I talk about when I was in my second treatment facility, right? It's when I started writing my book, actually. And you came and visited me. And I couldn't even talk for like the whole time. I was just a wreck, right? Because one, I was embarrassed. Two, I was like, how did I go through all this stuff? And and I'm in the situation I'm at, or how do the people that I went through, some of them are all right, but I'm not. And it's hard to say, but it's different from that military aspect to the civilian aspect and stuff. So I just want to say having a good circle around you, especially when you do go civilian or whatever, um, it's going to help a lot. So I know I kind of went off a little bit of topic there.
No, you're right on time and right on topic, Goody. And I appreciate everything that you just said. And I think, again, the value that you're bringing. I want to close with one last question. And I think and I've asked you three times kind of various forms of this last question, because I think it's so important to have someone like you on and to really get pinpoint advice, right? Just pointed advice, and kind of, I kind of merge two of the questions that I kind of had for you as the last question, because it is a fact that you're part of something that will define all of the rest of your story, right? It would define you. It would be a part of Goody's life. Viking 2 is just as much as Goody is a part of Dustin, right? So all of those things will still be a part of your DNA, right? If you had to capture your experience into one leadership lesson on that podium, what would you want every member, every senior NCO officer, airman, guardian, what would you want them to know as your final thought to live on in infancy for the next 100 years when they go back to say, what would Goody do?
So one, don't be a robot. There's too many robots, right? So concentrate on the whole person concept. And that kind of goes back to a little bit when I was talking about the physical attributes versus the psychological attributes. Is too many people focus on this. Too many people focus on that. Focus on the whole person concept. And we need to, I don't want to say so much train or nurture, because we don't need to coddle anybody, but we need to get and train our relief, basically, the future, in the correct way. And the way we do that is by don't being a robot. Go out and talk to your people, right? Go out and be a person. If you have people that are doing something, you should be doing the same thing, or at least know what they're doing, right? There's too many people. There's a difference between a manager and a leader. Now, while we still need managers, right? Because everybody can't be a leader. You can't have so many chiefs and no Indians. But be that leader that everybody wants to follow under. And, if you are a manager, don't be a micromanager. And like I said, don't be a robot. So go out, get to know your people, and find out what's really going on, and be personable. But concentrate on the whole person concept. So, yeah, that's what, going up in the ranks. Like, I think sometimes I didn't do that enough because I was focused on something else, or something else was falling behind. But concentrating on the whole person concept, really, we could use it.
Yeah. And I think, man, I think those skills are always been needed. And, I tell people all the time, I grew up in a different era, the Air Force, but that doesn't mean I ended in that era, right? Being a person, you can always change and adapt as a leader. And I appreciate that. I think the times that I met you when you were doing admin for us, right? No, in the front office, it still wasn't no difference than, you doing that and going down range and becoming a warrior that you were, or you are. But, I think those skills, and I don't want to say soft skills. When we say soft, I think, I don't even use it. We don't use the word soft and soft skills anymore. But I think we overemphasize the fact that just getting to know someone is soft. It really puts a negative connotation on it. No, getting to know someone is a human interaction, a human demeanor. We have not served in uniform together for well over almost a decade, if not a decade, and our relationship has never wavered, even though we took that uniform off. And I tell people, when you take the uniform off, what lasts is the lasting relationships, not the transactional relationships. The transformational relationships is what is left after your military career. And I think both of us can go to a chalkboard and we can write a bunch of names down that are transformational relationships in our life. And it doesn't matter if we are in a uniform or not, those people are there for the rest of our life. And you're one of those people. And I'm not ashamed to say that this will live. And I know this is recorded and will live on in infancy, that I love you, brother. And I love everything about who the man you are, and what you have done for your family, what you have done for our Air Force, what you have fought. Because I want to emphasize the word fought, to get back where you're today, to train airmen. This isn't something that was handed to you. You fought for years to get back, to make a difference as a civilian. And I want to publicly tell you how much I appreciate that, because you are continuing to make a difference. Who you are showing up in front of some 18-year-old or some 23-year-old lieutenant is going to have generational impact. And that's what we wanted this to be about. The people we were bringing on today, that all of you leaders, airmen and guardian, have seen, are people who have made generational impact, starting with General Breedlove down to Goody here, have made generational impact to this country, and collectively are still influencing tens of thousands of people. And that's what service looks like. So thank you again, Goody, for that.
Man, I appreciate you, and I love you too, Todd. And I thank you very much for this chat, the questions, and just being you. Because like you said, you've always been this way. I feel like to a point I've pretty much always been this way, with or without the uniform. And you're right. I fought for years to come back after I left, and this is where I belong. This is where my heart's at, and I feel like that this is where I'm going to stay until I'm finished.
No, and I appreciate that. I can't wait to come down and just see you in the field. I'm willing to lace up some boots and not actually do the things that you're doing, but I will sit back and watch. I would love to come out next time I'm in San Antonio and get to see what you guys are doing with Defenders for the Future, man. I would love to see it.
Anytime. We'd love to have you out, Todd.
Absolutely. So thank you again. Thank you again to Columbia Southern University. Thank you for the Air Force Sergeant Association for continuing to support airmen and their families around the world. And thank you to the Airmen and Guardians and whoever else gets to see this video. You just saw a national treasure. You just saw one of my greatest friends in this world, and you just saw a leader and a warrior in action. So thank you again.